2025 is an interesting year for ARK's annual Extralife charity event. Usually, Wildcard hosts a 24-hour stream where they give us a behind-the-scenes look at upcoming content and take donations for the Children's Miracle Network Hospital. Donate here if you're interested. As aforementioned though, things are a bit different in 2025. Not only is Wildcard skipping their stream, but instead of tying donation goals to boosted server rates and doing periodic reveals for that upcoming content, what we're getting this time around are creature TLCs tied to set donation goals. For the kids, right? But just because Wildcard isn't doing their typical 24-hour livestream doesn't mean that we aren't getting any reveals. Because out of nowhere, during Syntax's Scorched Earth charity marathon, he presented us with this. Rockwell Note 1, Rockwell Record 1, whatever you want to call it, with accompanying narration done by David Tennant and a backing track composed by Gareth Coker. Truly a 3-course meal in the world of teasers. But before I get into any sort of theory regarding the contents of this note, I'll let you all have a listen in case you missed it, or if you're like me and just want to hear it again for the 27th time.
Who am I? Such a simple question. 3 little words. And yet, I find I am unable to summon an answer. I've awoken, surrounded by metallic wreckage, the bright thunderclap of my arrival echoing away across a vast, rapidly cooling crater. From before this ruin, I remember little. I recall scattershot visions of monstrosity. I was something inhuman. And yet now I seem to be simply a man, vulnerable and exposed. Why that should surprise me, I cannot say. What was I before, and what am I now? I stumble about, lost in Stygian darkness, raw flesh raked by an icy gale. A stark cold jolts something loose in my mind. Betrayal? Murder? Madness? What had I done? What had I become? A wretched being. A monster. I fall to my knees in the freezing wind. Better to let it end here with some semblance of humanity intact. I feel myself finally slipping into nothingness, as it should be, and then...
No, Edmund, you won't die here. I won't let you.
A renewed vigor courses through me, a will to survive, and more than that, to perpetuate. My first goal is to escape the brutal chill. Somehow I have managed to fashion a crude shelter using scavenged debris still warm from the recent impact. Crawling inside, I curl around the vital organs at my core, desperate to raise my body temperature. Only then do I allow myself to slip into feverish delirium. And finally, the peace of darkness. Until the nightmares begin.
Chills. I was not expecting anything even remotely like this to get teased this year, and I'm so happy Wildcard was willing to share this with Syntax, and by extension us. Now, not only was I not expecting this reveal, but I also wasn't expecting Rockwell, or I guess Edmund because this is his human form, to be making an appearance in Lost Colony. I thought it was just going to be Rockwell as we see him on Aberration, vying for a shot at Arap Prime's superluminal link so he could get to Genesis. But apparently that's not the case, and somehow, some way, he's here, in the flesh as a normal survivor amongst the ruins of the ARK. I say somehow, like it's a big mystery as to how he's even here on Earth. But let's not forget the one crucial aspect all survivors have in common, that being the fact that everyone who was on an ARK is a clone of an already existing human. And in this case, I think it's pretty obvious what series of events led Edmund to making it planetside. First off, I want to make one thing clear, and it's that, in this context, the names Edmund and Rockwell belong to two very distinct and very different characters, and I'll get to why in a moment. See, what I believe to have happened here is that sometime around the version of Rockwell on Aberration crash-landed with the ARK after the events of Extinction, he made a clone of himself, one which would supersede him in case he had died in the crash. This new clone, one without prior knowledge of his predecessor, is who I'll be referring to as Edmund. Having awoken shortly after the ARK had struck the planet, to the point where he describes the station's wreckage as still being cooled by the frigidity of his surroundings, Edmund doesn't know who nor where he is. All he has to go off of are scattered memories from Rockwell bleeding into his psyche.
From before this ruin, I remember little. I recall scattershot visions of monstrosity. I was something inhuman. What was I before, and what am I now?
Wandering through the cold, struggling to comprehend his current situation, Edmund then falls to his knees and accepts the end. Before Rockwell speaks from within him, denying him his yearning for death.
No, Edmund, you won't die here. I won't let you.
Suddenly, he gets up and, in an attempt to survive, makes a shelter out of the ARK's still warm wreckage. Entering, Edmund begins to fall asleep, but his peace wouldn't last long as he would quickly find himself consumed by nightmares, likely those of his past life. Now I'm sure you can see why I'm differentiating these two characters. Hell, even Rockwell refers to his clone as Edmund, so the distinction is not only there, but it's also backed up by himself, or at least another version of himself. Don't think too hard about it. The concept of a split personality isn't something new either. In fact, this is something we've actually seen before, in Genesis Part 2. Where one of the ship colonists, Gabriel, was respawned early, with not just his memories, but also those of an Alexandrian occultist named Ixion. For the most part, Gabriel was still in control of his own body, just with Ixion in his subconscious affecting his behavior and mannerisms. The worst it ever got for him was when he was asleep, at which point Ixion's memories would surface, forcing Gabriel to question who he really was in the first place. This can also be seen with Edmund and Rockwell. Edmund not knowing who he is, while Rockwell pushes him against his will to survive. At the very end of his first note, it's even implied that Edmund is going to be inundated with memories of Rockwell in the form of nightmares while he sleeps.
Crawling inside, I curl around the vital organs at my core, desperate to raise my body temperature. Only then do I allow myself to slip into feverish delirium. And finally, the peace of darkness. Until the nightmares begin.
Now that we know how to properly differentiate Edmund and Rockwell, let's move on to how the two got intertwined in the first place, as this is only the second case we've ever witnessed of something like this happening in ARK's story. Gabriel and Ixion were a result of an accidental entanglement of two distinct engrams aboard the Genesis ship. So what does that make Edmund and Rockwell? I don't think that Rockwell intertwined his own engramic matrix with his own engramic matrix, because that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. We don't know exactly how engramic matrices are stored, but I'd wager there's no more than one engram archived per human being, seeing as there would only ever be one human from which to scan it. I'd also assume that there would only ever be one person cloned with said matrix at a time, at least on a per ARK basis. Of course, none of this is accounting for whether or not clones themselves have matrices, but I'm getting too deep into questioning things which have answers right in front of us, and have had answers for a while now.
I have seen your memories within the Codex. You are a broken soul.
The Codex is a new introduction to ARK lore we have yet to see, and was initially teased with the release of the Lost Colony expansion pass on June 18th of this year. But from what little has been teased about it, we know that it stores memories, likely in real time based on what the Lost King says to Mayan at the beginning of the expansion pass trailer.
You left behind those dearest to you. One murdered, and watched another vanish into nothingness. weakness.
Interestingly enough, the Explorer Note wasn't the only thing Syntac walked away with as a part of what Wildcard gave him. As though you may have missed it, it was accompanied by a blurb he read quickly thereafter.
The story in Lost Colony is told through a combination of voiced Explorer notes, dossiers, new conversation style, Engram, Codex memory scenes between various key characters depicting historical ARK events, CGI and anime. Like you sausages halfway through. CGI and anime cinematics, voices in head, and gameplay sequences.
The most important takeaway from this blurb is the existence of, and I quote, new conversation-style Engram Codex memory scenes between various key characters depicting historical ARK events, which sounds not only badass, but a whole lot like our explanation for why Edmund has Rockwell's memories, despite assumedly being cloned through the same matrix. It's entirely possible that shortly after Aberration crashed into Earth, Rockwell discovered the existence of the Codex and used it to imbue a clone of himself with those same memories. Or maybe he even found out about it sometime before the crash. Because I think what's being implied here is that Rockwell didn't actually survive the crash as we've been led to believe up until now. As for what purpose he has in doing so, Rockwell, for one, obviously doesn't want to die and lose everything he had become. So it's perfectly natural that he'd try and inhabit a new vessel, and what better candidate than himself? For two, we already know of his appearance in Genesis, so it's clear to me there's more to his reasoning than just survival. No, Rockwell fully intends to reclaim what he once was and go further, infinitely further beyond, using himself as a pawn. What I see happening is as follows. Edmund finds his way to Arap Prime, harboring Rockwell in the back of his mind. Over time, Rockwell's influence will grow on Edmund, causing him to experience a slow descent into madness as his other self already had. The two personalities would then merge into one, culminating in a repeat of events that had previously occurred on the Aberrant Ark, with Rockwell this time using Red Element in order to mutate himself, attempting to seize control of Arap Prime in the process, going so far as to form an army of his own, in that of the infected we were shown in Community Crunch number 473. As per the memo, we the survivor fight Rockwell off before he can succeed, but are unable to stop him from using Arap Prime's superluminal link to breach the Genesis ship as Rockwell Prime. From there, we know the rest. He first assumes control over the Genesis simulation, and then the colony ship, where he's defeated by the survivor once and for all, exposing the man behind the monster.
It's alright. Helena. I'm afraid.
Shh. She knew.
That's all we know for now about Edmund Rockwell and the role he's going to play in Lost Colony. This is my first time doing an impromptu video like this. Don't expect this kind of thing often, because I have to pay my editor, and it takes a lot of time and energy writing these scripts, that kind of thing. As always, if you think I missed anything, let me know in the comments below, and I'll make sure to leave it a heart. Consider leaving a like if you liked this video, subscribe if you'd like to see more, hype it for the algorithm, and join my lore Discord found in the description if you'd like to join Stories Ascended, Red Gear and I's community cluster, hosted by the wonderful I Don't Skate. I'd like to give an extra thank you to my editor for working his ass off on this video, and my patrons for their continued support of the channel, including, but not limited to, Nathan Hildebrandt, HeyNoQuest, and Jeremy Steiglitz of the Ascended Survivor tier. He's a co-founder of Wildcard, you know. I'd like to give one final thank you to Cliffin, who modeled the custom tech suit associated with my channel. He did an amazing job, and it's currently in the game as a custom cosmetic for everyone to enjoy. With that said, I'll see you all in the next video, survivors.